I start to question, like, are all psychologists good? Like, just like doctors, not every doctor is good. Like, if you go to your doctor and let's say you're overweight, a good doctor would be like, hey, like, here are some problems that could happen if you're overweight. Let's figure out how we can create a healthier lifestyle, right? And then I could see some doctors like being afraid of just telling someone, that they need to lose weight, right? And that would, in my opinion, would be a bad doctor because they're not doing that person a service, to tell them the truth of what needs to happen. And so with psychologists, like, I sometimes wonder if like all of them are, actually having a tough conversation, with their patients or not.
Yeah,
I could
absolutely.
totally be off here. Yeah, I'm just kind of talking out.
No,
And I
I mean,
just,
you're 100% right. Yeah, there's definitely a level of skill that goes into either a counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever part of the spectrum they fall into. And depending on which niche, I think is also important to know too, because some psychiatrists or psychologists fall into like marriage counseling or sex therapy, and others fall into the category of trauma and abuse and PTSD, so it's also knowing the different niches that somebody can fall into and making sure that you're going to somebody who's in the correct niche. The other factor that I've personally experienced with therapy is it's kind of like dating. You have to go and check out a bunch of different therapists and figure out if that person's right for you. And it doesn't necessarily reflect on their skill level sometimes. A lot of the times it's a matter of personality. It's a matter of being able to relate. And, for example, if you are a Black woman and you have a therapist that is a white man, you might not be able to, or he might not be able to relate to you as much as if you were to go to a Black woman therapist, right? Now there are some rare situations. Like I have a friend who is, part Indian, part Pakistani, part Iranian, and she goes to a white male therapist, and that therapist is really great for her. So although the cultural backgrounds doesn't necessarily match up, he has a very great skill that is of value to her. And the only way that she was able to know that is if she went to go see him in the first place. And if the last people or the last therapist that she went to wasn't actually helping her. And so for me personally, I've had an experience where I've had mostly great experiences with therapy, and I've had great therapists that have always been able to help me. Aside from one, I had one that I got from BetterHelp.com, which is a very incredible app to get virtual therapy. And I gave her, I think, maybe 3 sessions, and I think it's important to give people a chance because the first session is always just more of like a get to know you type of session. And you might know whether or not that person is right for you, but, giving them a couple chances to, really show you who they are and how they intend to help you is important. But I decided to cut her off just because I felt like she wasn't actually listening to me. And with therapy, especially, listening is super key. If you're able to make the client or the patient feel like they're being heard, being seen, and you're able to not only show that, but be able to give, I'm not going to say give advice because giving advice is actually not what therapists are supposed to do. They're supposed to help lead you to a solution. And if that person isn't able to lead you to a solution that works for you, then that shouldn't be a therapist for you. And sometimes that is a skill level thing, right? Because this particular therapist, I felt like she wasn't listening to me because she would just talk at me all the time and she wouldn't ask me questions, which is huge. That I think that's a big indicator to know whether or not a therapist has the right skill level, is do they ask more questions than they talk? Because that's a huge thing. I think that's a blanket statement for all therapists,
Right.
no matter what field you're in. But yes, if they take time to ask questions more than they speak, that is a good sign that they know what they're doing. Another thing is to really evaluate what are the exercises, or what is the homework that they're giving you. And if you don't feel like it matches, or if you don't feel like, at least in the next session, it helps you feel better in a certain way, then, or if it doesn't help resolve the problem that you guys have decided you're going to work on, then that's also a sign that they're probably misaligned, and they might be using more I don't know, templated things. Like that particular therapist was giving me these exercises that had nothing to do with what I expressed were my concerns. So that was very interesting to me, because I was like, okay, number one, you're not really listening. Number two, you're giving me stuff that's kind of like, it feels like busy work. It doesn't feel like it's actually helping. And I'm telling you what I need help with very explicitly, and you're not doing that. So I think the biggest thing is, being able to feel like you're heard and you're understood is foundational for a therapist.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think what you're describing is they call it empathetic listening, and there's like so many different levels to listening. And so some people, they listen, they're kind of hearing you, but they're thinking of their next response, and so it might come across as they're talking at you. And so empathetic listening is like truly having no agenda. Your thoughts are just totally listening to that other person. You're feeling what they're feeling. And then like, you don't have, sometimes you might not have a response right then and there. And, you wait a few seconds to really think about what they said. And then, you reply. So yeah, I could see why that would be so important in a therapist.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for somebody who's going through mental health challenges, right? A lot of people, like, the reason why they go to therapy is because they don't feel like they're heard in other situations, whether that be in their family life or friends or, whoever it is in their life. And so they need somebody to actually show them that they're heard and that they have a voice.
Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you watch the full episode here. And if you're not subscribed yet, make sure you click on the subscribe button. I really appreciate you watching. I'll see you in the next video.